there's a lot of information out there about investing in buy-to-let properties, but the problem you have is a lot of them are a small piece of a much bigger puzzle that don't always kind of fit together, and sometimes they don't make that much sense. In this video, I'm actually going to help you by sharing with you the 3 things that is involved in every buy-to-let purchase, so you know exactly what you need to be ready when you want to buy your first buy-to-let property. First things first, because I know this video is for beginners, what is a buy-to-let? Buy-to-let is simply an investment strategy where you buy property with the intention to rent it out for profit. So the first thing you need to think about is your finances. Before you even start looking at any properties because you've got some money in the bank, the first thing you need to think about is how you're going to fund the whole purchase. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm assuming that you're going to be taking out a mortgage to buy the property. Within this step, we're going to look at 3 things. We're going to look at your deposit, your mortgage, and other costs. Unlike buying a property for yourself where you're going to live in, where the deposit amount is usually between 5 to 10%, for buy-to-let properties, the minimum is actually 20% deposit. And some banks, it varies because they could want between 20 to 40%. Let's say you see a property for £200,000. And yes, guys, there are properties for £200,000. You just need to broaden your search outside the major cities of London and Manchester and all that jazz. But the minimum deposit that you're going to need for a £200,000 property for a buy-to-let is £40,000. Even if you do have 40k in the bank waiting for you to splurge on this property, you may not have enough for the whole purchase, but I will touch on that later on in this video. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to hit that button and make sure to hit the bell as well to be notified anytime I post a video to do with property and business. Next, you need to think about mortgage. Now, the maximum that you can borrow from a bank for a buy-to-let mortgage is actually linked to the rental income and not to your own personal income, which is what most of us will probably be used to when you're thinking about the property that you want to live in. So for a buy-to-let property, here in my face, your mortgage provider will base how much they will borrow you based on the amount of rental income you're going to get and not your own personal income. The reason banks do this is because they want to make sure that the rental income that you receive will be enough to actually pay for your mortgage payments plus a little extra, because they know as a landlord you're going to have expenses for those extras like your insurance or your maintenance or your service charge. Now, this isn't to say that if your numbers aren't numbering, you can't buy the property. It just may mean that you need to raise a higher deposit. The last part of the finance part is your other costs. So remember when I said the 40k may not be enough for the whole purchase? This is what I mean. So your additional costs are things that you physically need to pay for that you can't use credit cards to pay for. So things like your mortgage payments, your application fee, your survey fees, your solicitor fees, your stamp duty, your buildings insurance, all of it needs to be taken into account. The second thing involved in every buy-to-let purchase is choosing the property. I would actually be lying if I said that there was only one way to choose your property, because there's so many different factors to take into consideration. But there are 4 things, guys, 4 things that you must, not should, or 4 things you must do, and something you must take into account when actually choosing your property, which is your rental yield, the state of the property, the location, and the demand. So your rental yield is basically what you're going to be making back. So you're going to be looking at your annual rent versus how much you paid for the property. So let me give you an example. Let's keep to that £200,000 property and say your monthly rent is about £800. 800 times 12, you get £9,600 for the year for rent. So that's your annual rent. So your annual rent, 9,600 divided by 200,000 times 100, because your rental yield is a percentage figure, that's going to give you 4.8%. Now, a good net rental yield, so the net rental yield is when you've actually taken out all your expenses, is about 6% or more. That's good. So when you look back at the example of 4.8%, you're thinking to yourself, this might not be a great investment for me. But then if you're able to increase the rent, there might be a way for you to actually increase the rental yield as well. So always crunch your numbers. Next is the state of the property, because you need to know whether or not you need to inject more money to bring the property up to a standard where you can actually rent it out. Next, you have location, especially when you think about capital growth, and also how much rent to charge. So, if your property is in the middle of nowhere, there's no shops, there's no train links, there's no nothing, that's going to have an effect on how much rent that you could actually charge for that property. And finally, for this section, we have demand. Now, if you don't have demand for the type of property that you're trying to buy, you're going to struggle to rent the property. So, for example, let's say you're trying to buy a 2-bed property in a specific area, but you've been told by the estate agent that actually the demand for this area is more 3-bed properties, then you're going to struggle. Not that you won't get tenants, but you might struggle to get tenants for your 2-bed if the demand is for 3 beds. And basically what that means for you financially is, because it's taking you longer to get tenants in, you're going to have to keep paying the mortgage for that property and all the expenses until you rent it out. And now the third thing that is involved in every buy-to-let purchase is legal and tax implications. When you buy a buy-to-let property, you essentially become a landlord, and that with it comes legal responsibilities, not just to keep and maintain the property itself, but you're going to have legal responsibilities to the tenants directly, as well as any reporting requirements. So for example, as a landlord, you can't just take your tenant's deposit and put it in your bank account anymore. You've got to use a government-approved deposit scheme to actually hold their deposit. And of course, taxes, guys, because yes, the king must have his portion. You need to be thinking about income tax. So if you're going to buy as an individual, you're thinking about income tax. If you're going to buy as a company, you're thinking about corporation tax. We've already talked about stamp duty. And if you're going to be selling the property, let's say you just want to flip the property, you need to be thinking about capital gains tax. This whole process is not easy. It is not quick because you're going to be dealing with third parties like your mortgage broker, the banks, so on and so forth. But guys, if your goal is to be financially independent, and this is a long-term strategy, this is not a quick fix, it is worth it. So guys, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.